Hey, Courage class. So let me start with this. In 2024, I was in a full-blown crash and burn dumpster fire of a burnout period. And the crazy thing was, my life looked totally fine from the outside. Well, today's episode is about how I climbed out of that period, and more importantly, how I finally began asking myself, well, what do I want from this life? And just to be clear, today's episode is not a prescription. I am not going to give you a checklist, a framework, or a step-by-step, hey, do it like me plan. It should only be used as a single isolated case study based on me. And that is because change is a very personal decision, as is the degree of change that you make in your life. And these changes that you make for your life is also very personal and should be based on you. So today I'm going to teach you two things. Number one, why context matters when it comes to any change that you make in your life. And two, the one simple action that trained me to actually begin hearing what I wanted. So let's begin. Welcome to Courage Class. I'm Dr. Lindsay Kwok, and each week I'm in conversation with our community's changemakers and trailblazers. Together, we explore the unspoken parts of our Asian and Western experiences, finding strength, growth, and healing that reflect who we truly are, not who we've been told to be. I'm so glad you're here. Class is now in session. In late 2023, my physician gave me a mandate. She said that if I did not get my skyrocketing blood pressure under control in 3 months, it was really high last year, she was going to put me on blood pressure medication, which was very common, unfortunately, in my family. And she was looking primarily at this from a nutrition and exercise standpoint, something she really advocated for. But what she didn't understand was the extraordinary stress that I was under in that moment of time that I really believe actually led to this skyrocketing blood pressure. So for this, we need to go back. Why was my blood pressure skyrocketing? Well, at the time, I believe I had everything the world says that I'm supposed to want. I had a husband who was a provider. I had 3 amazing kiddos, a house, I had degrees, I had a great job that really enabled me to have a direct impact in my community, something that I was very, very proud of. The challenge was that Mike traveled a lot for his job. He worked global hours. He was constantly on. And I was equally as ambitious in my own career. I was building leadership experiences where students would solve real community-based problems, and they presented these solutions to local stakeholders. I wrote the curriculum, trained the teachers to implement, and helped the school find partners to fund and build these solutions. And it was such a privilege and an honor to be able to do that work. But here's the hard part. Our jobs left very little time for anything else. And we have 3 young kids who frankly really needed us, especially at that moment in time. And we had tried everything. I mean, nannies, taking out food, calendar invites, scheduling meetings, you name it, we did it. And certainly some of this helped. But the problem wasn't logistics. The problem was a lack of communication between us. We weren't building a life together. It was a series of independent decisions that we would just FYI each other on. So we slipped into these stereotypical gendered roles that we watch growing up in our own families, and what society also tells us is normal. He produced, I produced, and I managed a lot of what was happening at home, and that was exhausting. And I literally woke up one day and I was like, oh my God, is this it? This is what it's going to feel like in perpetuity? There were way too many sticks in the fire for me. I was so burned out. And I knew that life needed a significant change, but I didn't know at that moment in time what that really was. And so a few months into 2024, I decided to take a sabbatical. I literally went into my metaphorical cave and I started a ton of therapy. And then I also started running. Not because I'm an athletic person, everyone. Let's be clear. I am not an athlete, nor am I a runner. But I started running because remember that mandate from my doctor? I was like, I don't have any choice. I have to get my blood pressure down. I live near the Rose Bowl, so I started running around the Rose Bowl. They were really long runs for me. I was blasting my music. I was making my way around the Rose Bowl, and then something happened to me. I would be running. My body was obviously moving, but my mind was completely somewhere else. And I would be laughing on the trail. I'd be crying. I'd feel anger in my body. And all of this stuff, all of these emotions that I would experience on my run, I didn't even realize that I had been holding on to so much. And it was just like pouring out of me. Like the floodgates had been opened. I mean, people probably thought I was nuts on the trail because I was literally crying as I was running. Something else happened to me. Look, I ran so many times around the Rose Bowl. I could tell you exactly how I was going to feel at every turn, every mile, every incline. And at the end of every run, every single time, you guys, I would feel this incredible clarity. Like literally the stress would just melt from my body and I would feel more calm and peaceful. But I realized that it was that specific feeling that I wanted my life to feel like. I had never thought of that before. It had never even entered my mind that peace and calm is something I could feel and it could possibly be a sustained feeling. And so I knew from these runs that predictability, routine, autonomy over my time and my energy, and the freedom to experience any emotion, every emotion without judgment. I mean, it was such a gift that I had given myself because, of course, I had never even allowed myself to experience any feeling. I mean, maybe happiness, maybe some anger, but that was pretty much the extent to my emotional vocabulary at that time. And so running really gave me this concrete understanding of what I needed more of in my life. And this realization gave me the courage and the language to finally tell Mike that what I needed more of in our life was predictability, routine, and frankly, emotional presence from him. True connection, not a business arrangement. So running became a lifeline for me. If I wanted to get around the Rose Bowl, I started paying attention to everything. My sleep, my nutrition, even how I spoke to myself. The more that I ran, the more frequent those moments of clarity. And I would get these downloads at the end of my run. I realized later that I think that was my inner voice telling me. And for so long, I had ignored that voice. But now the clarity was helping me to really tune into that voice. And I knew deep down, you guys, that I could never go back to the way that we had structured our lives because I had a taste of the other side. I had a taste of what calm and peace felt like. And I knew that in this next chapter of my life that I wanted more of that. Maybe it's not possible to have that 100% of the time. I mean, I can definitely attest to that. I'm not zenning out all the time, but I definitely have a lot more of that because I knew that the life and the way that we had structured it, it didn't honor me. And man, that is so hard to say out loud. As someone who comes from an Asian lineage that has been trained to deflect attention, to serve others, to take up as little space as possible. What I have learned is that when your life does not honor you, man, it is incredibly difficult to show up for those who you love. And here's the other hard part. You're going to want to blame others, okay? I'm going to be really honest about this. It was so tempting, and trust me, Mike will tell you that I blamed him over and over. It is your job. It is your world that I am living in. I have never been asked for permission. Da, da, da. I went on and on and on. But the hard truth is that the only person that you can control is you. And you are the only person responsible for your life. And so it is your responsibility to change it if that is what you want. So with a lot of therapy, a lot of reflection, and frankly, more self-development podcasts than I want to admit, I came to a hard truth. If Mike, this ambitious man who I had married, chose to continue down that path, I would have to honor that. I respect that. I respect his ambition and his joy and his desire to pursue. That was his choice. And I also had a choice to make. If he continued down that pathway, then I would choose to leave this marriage. Because again, it was a life that did not honor me. So I know what you're asking. Is honoring me, does that all of a sudden mean that your life no longer honors him or other people in your life? And the truthful answer is, the conclusion that I can tell you today is that it's possible to structure a life that honors both of you, both of your desires, both of your ambition, both of your pursuits. You just have to get creative about it. And we're right in the middle of that. We're much better at communicating, and we're much better at being a little bit more emotionally attuned to one another. We're working on that. It's not easy, but again, these are all choices and intentional actions that we decided ultimately to take together. So here's the teaching, you guys. So it's very tempting to listen to this, okay, and think, okay, cool. So now I got to run around the Rose Bowl and I got to do it almost every single day. No, please do not do that. That is not the takeaway. And this is exactly why context matters. When this was happening for me, I had 3 months off and one very specific goal: get my blood pressure down. And that's why the exercise was frankly so intense. And yes, that movement led to a whole cascade of other changes: my nutrition, my sleep, my water intake, and yes, eliminating alcohol from my diet. That just lasted 3 months, you guys. But if you know me, okay, that's a big deal. I had the space to make all of those changes all at once. And that is not always real life. Maybe you can't leave your job because you're the breadwinner. Maybe you can't just stop because you have 15,000 other people to take care of. I only had 3 little people that I really was responsible for on a day-to-day. But what I didn't realize at the time was that running gave me access to something deeper: how I wanted my life to feel. Peace, predictability, routine, freedom, the freedom to feel and the freedom to dream. So I want you to remember this: context matters. And your change should be based on what you need, what you desire for in your life, and what your values are. And the implementation is based on what's going on in your life. The one thing I want you to remember, the one takeaway I want you to have, is that change is possible no matter what your circumstance is. Okay, so here's the second thing. Remember that one action that changed everything for me. So believe it or not, it doesn't have to be intense running. Running for me is foundational. I mean, I'm just someone who enjoys a good sweat, But that doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you can do in order to obtain clarity. And that is a research-driven insight. So this past season, I got really curious about why movement specifically unlocked so much change for me. And I came across this powerful long-term study that looked at physical movement in relation to one's quality of life. Look, we already know that exercise is a good thing. That's not what the study is saying, but here's why I get really excited about this specific study. So it followed nearly 10,000 people across different ages at different life stages. And they collected a data point at the very beginning of the study and then 20 years later. And the researchers accounted for people's starting points. So they looked at their health, their personality, their life circumstances, and they tracked how physical activity related to how people showed up in their lives over time. Now, that's really important because I think of it, I'm a teacher, so I think of it as like a standardized test. We know that standardized tests don't necessarily tell everything about a child's intelligence level, and that it's important to ask, well, what was that child eating that day? Does that child have 3 square meals a day? Is there stress at home? Is he or she being bullied at school? Like all of these factors play into a student's performance. And that's essentially what the researchers were doing. The researchers were saying that context is important. And they collected multiple data points to develop a more holistic picture of each individual. And what they found was really interesting. So people who moved less over the years, they didn't just decline physically, but they became less disciplined, less curious, less engaged, and less open to new experiences. So in other words, when people stop moving, their worlds slowly shrink. And based on the research, physical activity acts like an anchor. It predicts not just physical health, but emotional and mental well-being over the long run. So this is a very important study because first, it happened over a long duration, so over a course of 20 years. Second, they collected data from 3 different groups, all of whom had very different demographics. So they had middle-aged people, they had graduate students in the study, yet they were able to find the same conclusion to be true across all of these different demographics, that physical activity matters and can predict physical, emotional, and mental well-being over the long run. And it doesn't have to be intense physical activity. Any form of physical activity was good. So today, Courage Class, I want you to hear this clearly. Change is personal. The degree of change depends on your context. You don't need to change 30,000 things today. Ask yourself, what feels right to me? What feels balanced? What do I actually need right now? And if there is just one place to start, just one, I invite you to consider movement. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's stretching. Maybe it's playing pickleball with your friend. Just some gentle activity. This might be the key that unlocks so much more for you. So in the coming episodes, we'll hear from experts on spirituality, mental health, sleep, and nutrition. Just different doors that you can consider if change feels like the right thing to be doing in this season of your life. I hope you'll join us. I'm really excited to bring these experts to all of you in this second season of Courage Class. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Courage Class. I hope today's conversation gave you a little encouragement and inspiration. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And for extra motivation, tools, and behind-the-scenes content, sign up for my newsletter. I'd love to share with you more there. See you next time.